Hello people, Edwin Learnard here. In this edition of my YouTube astrology series, I'm going to be talking about the subject of astrology. And if you see me checking my watch periodically or timepiece, it's because I just came to the revelation that YouTube will not allow me to make a video in excess of 15 minutes, so I gotta watch my time very carefully here. So anyway, let me get started. A lot of people are under the misconception that astrology is just based solely on, sun sign astrology, and it's really more to it than that. And a lot of people know their daily horoscope, and they'll kind of take a gander at the forecast in the daily newspaper or what have you, but there's a lot more to astrology than just the sun sign astrology. First, let me start off. I think there's the three most important proponents in a horoscope are the sun sign, moon sign, and ascendant or rising sign. The sun sign is basically your inner character or self, and governs your basic habit patterns. Basically, the moon sign represents your emotional needs and wants, even your mother, and the unconscious, while the rising sign is basically it's predominant as far as in my opinion, as far as the appearance and outer personality goes. It represents not just the outer personality, but your facade and what you the characteristics that you show more easily, as opposed to the sun sign. And it's based on your time of birth, geographic location. The rising sign is the sign that comes over the horizon at the time of birth. So a person, if they were born with sun sign in Cancer, they were born at 6 a.m., that would be sunrise, and they would have a good chance of having Cancer rising. If they're born around 6 or 7 p.m., they might have a sign in the opposite or near opposite sign, might be Sagittarius or Capricorn rising. Another thing which is important in horoscopes, in astrology, there's also there's other planets as well. We have 10 planets total if you include the sun and the moon, and each planet represents something different. Mercury represents communication. Where Mercury is positioned in a horoscope, that basically shows our manner of communicating and way of thinking. Venus, that's the sign of love, so it shows possibly how a person is loves somebody with Venus in Leo can be very ardent in love, and very demonstrative, and really doesn't do much to conceal his feelings or affections towards somebody that he or she is attracted to. As far as other things, there's also in a horoscope there are 12 sections. It's in the natal chart, with the first sign of course being the ascendant or rising sign, and there are 12 houses, and each house represents a different sector or section of our life. First house is of course the personality itself. For another example, a 7th house rules partnerships, relationships. 10th house rules career matters. Somebody that would have, like, say, maybe the sun in the 10th house could be a person that has a lot of emphasis on career matters and their status in the community and status and recognition. A person that would have, let's say for example, sun sign in Gemini, and if they had that, say, in the 2nd house, they would have a lot of Gemini characteristics and traits, of course, that being their sun sign, but a lot of it would be connected with 2nd house matters, and 2nd house rules like rules money and values and possessions. So somebody with Gemini, sun and Gemini in the 2nd house could be somebody that has a lot of variety in terms of jobs and employment, possibly work many different vocations and jobs during his or her career. some other things to talk about as far as astrology goes, people. There are aspects between each, between planets, and basically aspects are dynamics between planets, and some are good and some are bad, depending on whether it's an adverse aspect or a good aspect. Good aspects are sextiles and trines, and those usually create harmony between the two planets that are involved. If you have like a negative aspect, like a square or opposition between two planets, often, it would indicate maybe obstacle or something adverse that the person has to overcome, or number of adverse things the person has to overcome, or challenges. But that doesn't mean that that person doesn't have the ability to work through those problems. Another thing I'd like to talk about in astrology there are things called chart patterns, and in horoscope, a chart pattern is something that you have, like planets that are basically they have a certain I guess we could say they're a certain dispersed a certain way in the horoscope, and it forms kind of like a formation in the natal horoscope. For example, if somebody had like a splash pattern, that would be basically the 10 planets would occupy generally no less than 8 houses, and the planets would be fairly evenly dispersed in the chart. And in a splash pattern, the person could either be very versatile, or somebody that just scatters their interests and has really has a hard time finding true integration of purpose in finding that one thing that he or she really maybe possibly wants to do with his or her life. And anyway, that is going to be it for this edition of my YouTube series. In my next video, I'm going to give you part 2 of my take on astrology, and this is just basically to tell people that there's a lot more to it than just the sun sign astrology, which is people can grasp, but it's very superficial. The knowledge in contrast to what astrology really has in terms of its depth. There's a lot more to it than just the sun sign, and I may not go through everything that's connected with astrology, but I want to make the people out there cognizant and aware of a number of the things that astrology goes into. That is more than just the sun and astrology. And I will talk to you in my next video. I'll have part 2 of my dissertation about astrology.